Good morning. It's Wednesday. Wow. Can't believe it's already Wednesday, February 11th, 2015. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 131. My name is Chris, and we got a great smattering of news today. A lot to cover. A lot of good stories. So let's bring in the Mumble Room right now to get started. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Greetings.
Hello.
Happy science.
Happy science. So I want to just do a quick follow-up story right off the top here, just because this is a story we've been following sort of accidentally on the Tech Talk Today program about the FBI and the rather obscene lengths they're going to keep the details of these Stingray devices that they use today without warrants to monitor civilian cell phones in public. And there's been a couple of court cases now where the court cases have sort of been hurt. The FBI's chances of winning the case have been hurt because they're not willing to disclose in court how they got the information with those Stingrays. So Ars Technica has another article up about this, and this one is a memo that came out, and they say, in the event of a Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension receives a request pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act or equivalent state local law or discovery process, and they go on blah, 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 they say that you must absolutely immediately notify the FBI of any such request in writing and allow sufficient time for the FBI to seek to prevent the disclosure of the information. So they're basically have a standing rule now where if anybody requests information on these, you have to notify the FBI and you have to give the FBI time to block it. They're really this is an interesting thing because the way they're doing this is they're essentially going around and setting up a fake cell phone tower and getting your cell phone to join that tower. And the problem is essentially anybody that uses those frequencies in that area just gets picked up. So it needs the light of day. And we'll just keep following it. Not a lot there. Just wanted to give a quick update because we've been sort of following this since we started seeing this. All right. Next story, one more quick one just because I thought this was particularly interesting. Yesterday we talked about the federal government setting up a counterterrorism division that was sort of going to be collating all different cyber terror threats. Of course, there are other divisions already, like the NSA has their own already, and so does the FBI, so does the CIA. But now we're going to have one overall one. Well, guess what? Facebook's already beating to the punch. Facebook has launched Threat Exchange. It's an API-based platform that lets companies share security threat information. Threat Exchange is described as an API-based clearinghouse for security threat information. It's really a social platform, which Facebook naturally excels at building, which allows companies to share with each other details about malware and phishing attacks. No thanks. However, Pinterest, Tumblr, Twitter, Yahoo have already participated in it during the beta. Bitly and Dropbox have also recently joined, bringing the participants to 7 major tech companies that will be involved in the Threat Exchange. Anybody in the Mumble Room hear anything about this Facebook Threat Exchange API? This is new to me.
No, not idea.
It's new to me too. Is it open to everybody or just these companies?
Well, at least so far it's been invite only. I don't know if that's going to change. It's been initially just invites.
I wonder actually how will this play out in the new directives that have been playing out on Europe, United States, and moving the data, since they currently have limitations on what they can move back and forth.
Right. Well, and that's That's Facebook's argument. Facebook says, well, right now, this information is being shared amongst companies already via spreadsheets and email attachments. So the Facebook thinks that, an API system is more secure. It's better. It's more better for everybody, I guess, is what they feel. I think they specifically said in their press release, more better. So, smart. Okay, let's talk about the story that you guys are waiting to talk about. There was a blog post this morning. I think it was this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. It was brought to my attention just this morning by the folks over at Elementary OS. Payments, or why we make you type $0 to download Elementary OS. They start with, while our desktop developers are hard at working and making the next desktop release happen, our web developers and many new contributors are collaborating over at GitHub to bring the new website to life. With the new website, we've decided to revise how we promote and handle payments. Now, they show you the old way. Now, in the new way, when you go to download, you have to type in a dollar amount to download. You can type in $0. And I think it looks like, at their stats, users have downloaded Luna, and around 99.875% of those users are downloading without paying. Only a tiny 0.125% who do. And the most common is the default $10, followed by $1. But again, only a tiny fraction of 1% are even paying at all. And I think they're a little upset about it because, they're saying, look at all this hard work we're doing, and we're not getting paid. Daredevil, do you want to kick this conversation off? Do you have any thoughts on this up top?
So I'm going to start to say, hey, give us metrics as much as you want, but give us time frames, how you came to those values, because 2 million times of downloads and 99% of people means nothing, really. It's downloads, right? So
Yes.
if it's over a period of a year, over a period of a month, how long is this been going? Like, if you don't have quality to the metrics, I'm going to say that this argument's still weary.
But does it sounds believable to me. It sounds reasonable. Because here's the thing. I would say it's I would say we get about donations from about 1% of our audience.
All right.
So it sounds maybe ours is a little bit higher than that. Maybe it's a little higher now with Patreon. Actually, last time I ran those numbers when we were doing PayPal. But it sounds believable to me. So I almost say you're right. That metric is sort of not very much value without a time frame. But that aside, the core argument is that perhaps a lot of elementary OS users are downloading the distro and they're not essentially giving value for the value they receive.
See, I totally understand you coming from that perspective, but you have metrics that come and show you how many times are people consistently watching your program. They have a one-time download which may not consistently map to the usage of the system. So they might have tried, not like ditch the OS, and they wouldn't know because the servers that they use are canonical infrastructure. So they don't really have download data on that.
Here, I've got one point to make also, is just that, they're really pushing people to give, to support the operating system, and it's like, that's great. At the same time, you really need to
have some
step up your development cycle a little bit.
Okay. All right. So, Voldman, you wanted to chime in with some stat information? You there?
Voldman?
Nope. Voldman, you're with the Elementary OS project, correct?
Well, he is.
Yeah,
he might have issues on the internet connection he had earlier.
Okay. Yeah, he says he might have some download stats for us, but I think he's having connectivity issues there. And
I do have one question.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I know it's a different OS, but Ubuntu also has a you can put in a $0 amount.
Some stats from the PP is that people have been using.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I have been a contributor for some time now.
I think you're on a delay, so once you hear me, you can go ahead and give us the stats if you want. Go ahead. I think you have because of the connection. I think it's like a bad delay, but I'd be curious to hear what you have to say because that's valuable info.
Yeah, I think it will be probably better if he gives us the information later.
Yeah.
He really had bad connection.
Yeah, it does look pretty bad. I'm looking at the info right now to see what we can do, but I don't think there's much we can do. I can tell you he's on Elementary OS Freya using X11, running version 1.28 of Mumble. That's all I can tell you, though.
At least it's a decent and recent version.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of underscore that they have an interesting conflict here. Yes, they do, as the chat room is pointing out, sit on the top of the shoulders of giants because they're running on top of the Ubuntu base. But this is one of the things that the internet is particularly bad at. I don't know how else to say this, but you guys don't know how much hard work this stuff is. Like, some of you do, but most of us don't have any idea. Like, the stuff you see online, you have no idea how hard people are working behind the scenes to make that happen. Like, you think you have an idea, but you have no idea how much sacrifice and dedication and time people are investing. When you look at something, you go, well, what? They're just sitting on top of Ubuntu and they have a theme. What's the hard work? What's the big deal? But in reality, you have really, you don't know the whole scope of how much work that takes. So it's hard for us to say they deserve or don't deserve money when we don't actually know, like does anybody listening know that I put in like a 14-hour day yesterday? Do you care? No, it's not a detail. You just know you get to listen to your show. You don't care that Chris had to work 14 hours to make that show happen. And that's just like we don't care? Right, exactly. Why? But at some point you do have to go, well, like you do have to make some sort of acknowledgement that there is value. If you find that thing valuable, like that distro, then you do have to come to kind of make that decision. Like, you don't have to know how much hard work they're doing. You just have to know if you value the thing, and their hard work is whatever it takes to make that thing valuable to you.
Sure, and I think it's incumbent, though, on the creator of the content to make that decision whether or not they're going to charge for that. If you put out content for free, you should not expect a cent. you should not expect anything if you put that content out for
but
free.
Then how does
on you to make that
But
decision.
then how does a project like Elementary OS, who can't, they can't do sponsors, right? They can't do. How do they have a chance? You've got to be able to pay for something like that. And it's a niche product, and the more niche it is, the more that audience has to be the one supporting it.
So I totally understand and agree with that vision. But nonetheless, as a developer and as someone that actually tried to contribute during a period in time to Elementary project, I noticed that they actually have an issue with the way they come. It's not that people are caring too much that they are charging. It's more the attitude that they always have towards users when it comes about to payments. For example, who knows that Elementary has a company registered? Very little people know. This information is not even in their website.
Right. What about the idea of just not allowing it to be downloaded for free at all?
Sure, that's fine. Be clear about your intentions. But you know what's going to happen. Since they're actually a lot of their work is standing on the shoulder of giants, they will most likely just be forked.
That's pretty hard. Yeah, that's pretty hard. That's the catch-22, isn't it? And that is a little bit of a difference. It's not a wholly original product. So there is the audience. I call them the audience because that's just my parlance. But whatever you call the user base, whatever you want to call the user base, some of them are aware of that. It's a very particularly tricky thing. I think out of all of the distros out there, I really would like the Elementary. I would love to be able to see the Elementary OS funded by its user base because it really seems like a distribution for a specific type of user, and that user should be willing to pay a little more if they value sort of the extra polish that they put on that. And a lot of times people are willing to pay for a little more polish. So it seems like they have the right kind of product to be able to make money at it. It just doesn't seem to be people are willing to pay for a download, which is, it's funny. What's funny about how far we've come.
We are partially funded by the...
Go ahead.
They are partly funded by something. I don't know. The bounty source program, I guess. That's what he's talking about.
The bounty source is where all the money goes.
That makes sense.
So the money is spent on the bounty source program.
Yeah, they put that money on the bounty source program. Developers come in and they receive some of the money. They're not necessarily taking at this moment money from what people have been paying or the donations to actually use on their things. Sometimes it goes to the server.
That's fair.
But mostly goes to the
and that makes sense. And I also this is another thing that gets me worked up. I don't think we as users, consumers, need to know how Elementary OS spends their money. What we need to know is they make a product we like, and if we like that product, whatever they're doing to make that product must be the right things. So I don't before I donate. I don't need to see their balance sheet. I just need to know they're above board and they're doing the right stuff. And I think the problem is that the Elementary OS keeps running into these PR problems because they're very passionate and very particular about their product. They keep, don't call it EOS. There was kind of some feathers ruffled about that. Now it's our users are cheating the system, almost word for word. That's also ruffling feathers. It's these weird communication things that make them seem a little different, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm gonna keep noodling this over and maybe talk about it more in last. I don't know if I agree with the language. I don't necessarily disagree with what they're trying to do. I don't know if it's the right method.
It conveys an arrogant sense of entitlement, though. I mean, if they want money for it, then they should charge for it. It's that simple. If you want money for the work that you do, you should charge. You shouldn't volunteer.
I would agree.
Then,
I think though. I agree. I think you're right, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I think you could flip that around, and I think they could make the argument. Well, you're a self-entitled jerk because you don't feel like you need to pay for anything, and we're working hard for this, right? So you could see how they could, in their minds, that could be a logical flip that they could make. So you're coming at it from the exact opposite angle as the user. So it's a total disconnect.
There's a difference, though. If I was stealing their product, for free. Yeah, if I was stealing their product, then that would make me that entitled, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm not stealing. Right. They're giving it away for free.
That's true.
They're supplying
I know.
It to me.
I know.
Saying, here, take this.
I know. Well, maybe it's because I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but yeah.
Well, look, I'm noticing, and this is just one thing that I have noticed, a common theme throughout the Elementary OS project is they have horrible community management and public relations. They are basically, like you said, calling their users moochers for the most part. And that's just a horrible thing to
see. Elementary OS is not a...
That's a failure of their business model. So they should change the business model to either, as somebody mentioned, selling it only, or offering support, or something.
I would say as they're finding their footing, it's a little harsh to call it a failure. It's more like this particular approach isn't working, so now a little bit different approach. And again, I think maybe what needs to happen is more like constant prodding, and not like what it seems to me is there may be a little resentment builds up over time, and then these big posts come up, and they're very well articulated. But it's like something's been brewing inside the project. The way people call it, or in this case, it sort of sits there and festers for a little bit, and then a big post is made. By the time that post is made, there's some frustration there, and it comes through in the writing. If there was more constant, like, hey, just for hey, this month we're down $1,000. We could use help from our users, or hey, this week we're trying to make this goal. Could you help us out? If it was that kind of approach, it's more of a consistent, more of a reward approach. That might be a little more successful.
That's a communication issue, and that's what Eric brought up. They need some communication person, and maybe a marketing person, and maybe a different business model.
The only thing I would add is looking at what is available in the spectrum of desktops available, because honestly, they are a desktop environment with some default applications, right? And when we look at what is available, yes, they have the good looking. So they have great designers, and there's no doubting that. And they have to a great extent developers that were able to accomplish those designs. So nonetheless, when you go to the quality and to the actual overall thing, as someone that has been into a little bit of the code of some of these applications, I have to wonder. And it's
it's early days still. That's hard to say. I mean, they're beginning, and those things will be matured. I mean, yeah, maybe if you look at code of a few apps, it's not that great. But, like if you look at Geary, which isn't necessarily directly an elementary OS, but if you look at Geary, which is a great looking app, a year ago versus Geary today, it's way more improved a year later. So
absolutely. When you're making such a hard statement on the charging of your product, perhaps you need to be at least a little bit more on the ball on your quality status.
Here's what I want to do. Because Voldman from the Elementary OS project, his connection's so bad, after the show, we'll chat some more, and we'll do a follow-up in tomorrow's show to kind of get his points, so that way we get them all in here, because unfortunately the connection didn't work. And it was just kind of an experiment. It would have been great if it did. Sometimes, that happens, but we'll do it after the show, and we'll do a follow-up in like next week at the end of the show or something to kind of make sure we get all his points in there, because I bet there's more to talk about here. But we should probably move on, because I do have a couple of Google things I want to touch on before we wrap up for the day. So let's just cap those off real quick. This one's pretty cool. Mark your calendars. This is going to be a great week for Tech Talk today. Google I.O. is happening in May, the 28th through the 29th, 2015 at Moscone Center. And we'll be covering it live, at least the keynote, and then the additional coverage for the couple of days as it goes. And so that'll be in May, a little earlier this time. I believe last year it was in June, right? So, and it was a little bit closer up to WWDC. So now Google I.O. will be out before WWDC. See what they have. And then this one almost just bit me right in the butt, but thankfully we caught this one because we had a few things using this. Google has announced they will shut down the Google Talk network on February 16th. That's the final cutoff date where you'll have to switch over to Hangouts if you use Google Chat, which is funny because we've been working on a new video system for the Linux Action Show, and to sort of take care of some of the hard plumbing, we decided to run on top of the Google Talk network. And then yesterday, we actually just completed moving off of the Google Talk network, and that's when this news story came out. So our timing was pretty good on that. We now have our own custom XMPP server. So a couple of Google stories for you. And then the last Google story, did you forget that Google also owns killer robots? Yeah. This new Boston Dynamics robot dog has been updated. You must have seen this if you watch SciByte. We've talked about this a lot. It's a hydraulic robot. It can walk, trot, and even climb steps. It can walk and run over rugged terrain. And it also, you're seeing in the video right here, if you're watching that, this guy, he's kicking this robot. The thing you got to appreciate about him kicking that robot is that's on ice. That thing, it's not falling over, that's recovering, is doing it while on frickin' ice. That is a robot being kicked, recovering on ice. Ice, you guys, ice. You know the cold stuff? Ice. It's slippery. It's pretty amazing.
When Skynet takes over,
yes,
they're gonna cite this video as a robot abuse.
No, it's totally Google's fault too. Here's a great creepy video that it's kind of fun to watch. I'll play a little bit. You can see how this thing moves because it's kind of amazing. Just watching it. In this video, it's just walking around the Boston Dynamics office, which is for some reason extremely creepy. Listen to it.
There's a whole new meaning to kicking the dog.
Listen, and then he walks up and kicks it. And like robots in sci-fi, it even has a spinning camera thing, like a spinning, like, stupid, like, Hollywood prop on its head. But it's legit. It's like a radar, I think, or LiDAR.
I think it's similar to the technology used in the Google car.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like a LiDAR thing, huh? Yeah, so anyways, it's crazy, and Google just released a new version of that. Of course, that's through Boston Dynamics. And it's being primarily designed for the military. The thing could, carry heavy bags and stuff like that for troops. And they've actually done a little testing with it. And the military calls it Cujo. Like, that's not condemning us. They call it Cujo. Okay.
I've actually gotten to see one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my uncle used to be in the military before he retired from it, and they were doing some testing at the base that he was on, and I just happened to be there for the summer, and I actually got to push one over. It is the weirdest thing to watch it recover. It's kind of creepy.
It just watching that video, it's creepy. Yeah, I think so too. All right.
And it, by the way, it's a lot bigger than it actually looks in that picture.
Yeah. You know what we all need? To wear more clothes. Well, not all of us. I'm talking to you, ScarJo. But most of us need to wear more clothes. So go over to teespring.com/TechSnap and get your TechSnap 200 shirt. Brand new logo just rolled out for the TechSnap 200 program last week. And the first place you can get it is on that t-shirt. We'll be updating the TechSnap graphics over the next few days. You can get a t-shirt. I love me the long sleeve shirts. You can get it in gray or white. And it is available for 13 more days. And then it's all gone. Teespring.com/TechSnap. We sold 125, so we've reached the goal. So they're going now. And you can get yours in about, let's see, 13 days is when it's done. And then a couple of days for printing, a couple of days for shipping. And then that's when you'll have it. Teespring.com/TechSnap. The gray version. I mean, the white's good too. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell you what to wear. You know what you look good in. You probably look good in a lot of things. But I'm just saying, the gray version, if you're like me, and you sometimes get a little food on your belly, the gray version hides it a little better. The white version, I always end up staining. And then they just become undershirts. I still love them, though. They're still good undershirts. But the gray version, I feel like I get a little more out of. There is a video that I want to end on today that is... It's a makeup video. I should have played this for you, I don't know, maybe 130 episodes ago. This is a 50-year-old video. And it predicts the internet, computers, and flat-screen TVs, and even basic home automation and networking. Before we had networking, before we had LCD TVs, before we had an internet, before we had home computers. This is 50 years ago. This is amazing, this video. It doesn't get it quite right, and it's a little sexist, so you'll have to forgive that. It is from 50 years ago, but it is remarkable how accurate they got this. So we'll end on that note. Join me tomorrow, Thursdays. Tech Talk Today will be at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, jblive.tv. And we still have a little more time to get a Kickstarter of the week if you want to submit it to techtalktoday.reddit.com. Any other content is also excellent over there. I'd love stories, feedback, anything. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. And enjoy this video that pretty accurately predicts the future from 50 years ago.
Might spend most of his time in the home of the 21st century. This equipment here will allow him to carry on normal business activities without ever going to an office away from home. This console provides a summary of news relayed by satellite from all over the world. Now, to get a newspaper copy for permanent reference, I just turn this button, and out it comes. When I've finished catching up on the news, I might check the latest weather. This same screen can give me the latest report on the stocks I might own. A telephone is this instrument here, a mock-up of a possible future telephone. This would be the mouthpiece. Now, if I want to see the people I'm talking with, I just turn the button and there they are. Over here, as I work on this screen, I can keep in touch with other rooms of the house through a closed-circuit television system. With equipment like this in the home of the future, we may not have to go to work. The work would come to us. In the 21st century, it may be that no home will be complete without a computerized communications console.